Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I'll be taking a look at a winter storm that's going to affect almost the whole entire country as Christmas time comes around. Now before we get into the video, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to get notifications whenever I upload. But now since we're done with that, on to the video here. We have the GFS up and you can see that you have the storm already starting to form by 1 p.m. December 22nd, which is currently right now, when currently filming this video, and it's on the border of North Dakota and Montana. Now if we make our way to 1 a.m. December 23rd, you see that since the latest runs, this storm has shifted more south because and this field of snow has shifted more south as well. So it looks like Minnesota, Wisconsin, and even parts of Iowa could see decent snowfall out of this now. Now, as you can see, this system is also going to bring a little bit more precipitation than thought before. So, we could see that at one point, all of Minnesota could be under snow or rain at one point, and this stretches all the way from South Dakota all the way back up into just northern parts of New York, and all parts of Canada here. You have heavier snow throughout the area through Minnesota, parts of northern Wisconsin, and southeastern North Dakota and northeastern South Dakota. Now if we make our way to the next slide here, you can see the storm starts to pull away, but it also drags in more cold air. So northern parts of Wisconsin and central Wisconsin starts to change over to snow, and then the precipitation starts to die off and you have more cold air making its way down to the southern part of the United States here. On the next slide, you can see that the storm starts to dissipate, but it's still snowing in parts of Minnesota and northern Wisconsin. But if you look down into the south by Indiana, Michigan, and even into parts of Illinois, that rain to snow changeover is starting to happen here. And on the next slide, it gets more widespread even into Tennessee here. Central parts of Tennessee, Indiana, and western parts of Ohio start to change over to snow here. As the cold air starts to make its way into the system, a low pressure starts to form on the Arctic boundary here. This is approximately where your Arctic boundary is, and it's going to skyrocket to the north here, and it's going to ride that. Now, since the latest runs, the Arctic boundary has shifted more westward, so it's going to form more inland. So it looks like the coast will get shut out here with no snow. Maybe some flakes mixing in, but it doesn't look like any accumulation here. But as you can see here, the storm is right around the Tennessee-North Carolina border, and on the west side of that you have cold air interacting with the system, so you have more snow. On the next side you can see it jumps from west parts of North Carolina all the way up into almost central Pennsylvania here in just 6 hours. So this storm is moving pretty fast here, but as this happens, more and more cold air gets dragged in, and you have a more widespread snowstorm here, even into some parts of Kentucky, Tennessee, North Carolina, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania here. This is where the area of most snow should be, in that area where I just highlighted here. But another thing to talk about here, as the storm starts to spin clockwise, you have winds pushing off the Great Lakes, causing lake effect snow to form here. You may see it on the next slide here. As the storm starts to wrap around, you can see that the cold air also drags down, and then you have the winds going in a more southeasterly direction over the lakes, causing a perfect lake effect snow here. This is a perfect setup for lake effect snow. An Arctic air mass coming down into the eastern part of the US, and then it brings cold air onto the lakes in a more southeasterly direction, and you have snow coming off the lakes. But by December 26th, all you have is lake effect here, snow on the Great Lakes and even parts of Ohio and Pennsylvania, but that's pretty much it. The rest of the area is pretty cold because you have the lasting effects of the Arctic air, and then that is pretty much it. But if we take a quick look at the European here and see what it shows, you can see that the storm by now is starting to form in central South Dakota, and then again it agrees with the GFS dragging the system into central Minnesota. Now, instead of having a more vigorous snow event for Tennessee, it has a less snow event for Tennessee and more of a more snowy look in the Tennessee North Carolina mountains there. Instead of central Tennessee getting heavy snow, it has shifted more easterly. But then again, it shuts out the coast, just seeing heavy rain and strong winds. But you still have that lake effect snow here. If we take a look at the snow totals from each model here, you can see that you have a pretty big area of swath of at least an inch of snow in the mountains and parts of the Midwest, and then your 1 inch snow for the east is a pretty big area as well, and this is your 6 inch plus range possibly. Now, I just want to show you guys something that caught my eye when I was looking at the weather. This isn't my area at all, but I'm just saying, you start out the day from Minneapolis here, 41 degrees, but you drop all the way to -3 degrees here, as shown by this weather forecast here. So, you go from 41 by 1 a.m., and then all the way at night by 11 p.m., you're at 6 degrees and snowing. And then if you continue throughout the night, you drop to -2, -3 degrees, and you only start warming up by 10 o'clock, and you only get up to 4 or 5 degrees, and that you get even colder the next day, going down to -8, which is very, very cold. With this Arctic air mass, it's going to be very cold widespread. Now, if you take a look at my winter forecast for now, this will probably change for bits of the east depending on the track of the system, but it's almost locked down for the Midwest here. You have mountain snow 1 to 8 inches. Due to the elevation, you could have an inch of snow at 500 feet, but if you go up 2,000 or 3,000 feet, you could have 8 inches because the cold air will most likely be colder up there and could possibly stay all snow instead of rain changing to snow. But anywhere in this light blue that stretches from Montana, Nebraska, parts of northern Iowa that we included from last video, and parts of Wisconsin, you could get a coating to an inch. This darker blue 1 to 3 stretches from North Dakota all the way down to South Dakota and most northwestern parts of Iowa, and then all the way back up to Minnesota and Wisconsin here. And then this darker blue right here is 48 inches that stretches from northeastern Minnesota and northwestern Wisconsin. And this purple area is lake effect snow, and you could get anywhere from 2 to 6 inches on top of what you have already. Now, this is where the tricky forecast comes. You have a coating to an inch from around Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, even into parts of northern Atlanta, depending how cold it is. Even into maybe some parts of extreme northern South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, all the way up into West Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania, and even into some parts of New York. Now, the 1 to 3 inches stretch from Ohio, Kentucky, parts of Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania. And your jackpot here should be in the middle of all this, 4, maybe even 8 inches depending on elevation, but as of right now, I'm just going 4+ inches depending how cold and intense the snow is. That stretches from eastern parts of Ohio, southwestern parts of Pennsylvania, almost all of Virginia, West Virginia, Virginia as well, North Carolina, and Tennessee. That is it for today, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and put on the notification bell for